What's up, everybody? Today I have Chris Grant from Clear the Shelf. This guy is an absolute OG in the space, man. He's been on YouTube. He's been selling Amazon for many, many years. He goes way back. And first thing, Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I always loved nerding out over Keepa and all things Amazon, so this was a no-brainer, man.
Some of my audience members are not going to know who you are. So if you could just give us a really quick rundown, like how long have you been in the game? When did you start producing content? How long have you been selling on Amazon? And then if you give us your best 30-second elevator pitch, what is it that you actually do right now on Amazon?
Yeah, so I have been in the game for over 10 years. I
Okay.
always forget exactly the first time of when I sold my first item, but I remember what it was. It was in the media category. And I made my first video on YouTube in 2016. But even before that, I was helping out in some Facebook groups. So I kind of went along the path that I tell everyone to do, like go ask lots and lots of questions. I even offered to like fly myself to people's warehouses and be an intern as I was trying to learn and take vacation time to do that kind of stuff. Nobody took me up on it. It was kind of weird back in the day to ask people to do that. And then I started kind of documenting things in 2016 and sharing everything I could. I helped out with tactical arbitrage support for a while and created some courses around that and a bunch of content on YouTube about that as well. We started a blog and just, I don't know, I've just tried to be as helpful as I can in the community because it's really rewarding to be able to watch others grow their business over time.
Like you mentioned, one of the things that you've been so helpful in is Keepa. When I have talked to people about reading Keepa graphs, a lot of them go, yeah, I learned all I know from Chris. And so one thing that I want to do is actually dive into some actual Keepa charts of books that I've sold and that I bought that I'm experimenting with, because over time I realized that if you go back and look at the things that you've sold, especially things that move a lot less quickly, like things that I buy, books that move on average 3.5 months, you start to notice that there are some discrepancies, things that's like, this might not make sense. So I want the Keepa master himself to let us know what he thinks. So if it's okay, let me share my screen and then we'll dive right into it. All right, can you see my screen here, Chris?
Sure can.
One thing that I think is really cool is that, if we talk about sales rank, it seems to be something that is really simple. Like if you've been in the game for a long time, you think, okay, well, sales rank is simply just how popular one item is in comparison to another product within that one category. And a lot of the advice that's given on YouTube, even including advice that I had given in the beginning, was like, hey, if you see a sales rank drop, boom, that's a sell. And I know now that a sales rank drop is actually a lot more nuance than that. It doesn't necessarily mean one sell. It could be multiple sales. But I kind of just want to show you some books like this one right here, The Goblin Emperor. This is a book that I'm planning to flip. And I just bought this on March 10th, so not too long ago. And you can actually see that the point in time when I bought this March 10th, if I zoom in here, you can see that the price dropped basically from $118 down to about $8.95. And this is a book that I was tracking with the Keep a Track product feature. So I ended up picking up this book. But you notice that the sales rank actually doesn't respond to that at all. It actually just goes up. And what's interesting is that you actually do see the offer count drop. So the offer count goes from 8 to 7. So I guess I'm just curious, have you seen these sort of discrepancies? Like what are sort of your thoughts behind maybe seeing something that, at least this is clear evidence of something that I bought that doesn't actually record a sales rank drop?
Yeah, you're right. So BSR is so much more nuanced than is easy to say really quickly in a video on YouTube or a short on TikTok or wherever.
Right.
The sales rank it does go down when there's a sale typically, but only if that item is selling faster compared to all the other items in its category. Okay. So if this item is, it sold 1 unit and maybe the items around it, let's say around the same rank area, also sold 1 unit, well, the sales rank could stay the same, really. And the other thing we've got to think about is, this is not a popular product, okay? We can tell that by the current rank. We can tell that by the number of times that it's selling. Yes, it does move, but it's not that popular. And so Keepa is not necessarily going to offer as many resources to gather the sales rank data that it would, say, a Nike shoe that's ranked 1,000 in the shoes and clothing category.
Right.
But if you would zoom back into where you bought the item, I want to point out something that's a little interesting here. So what you're going to see or what I see here is I see where you purchase this, and it's
Mhm.
got, drop that price down.
Yep.
What you notice on that rank there is rather than continuing to stair step up, it does stay flat for a little bit longer than it has
Interesting.
previously.
Right.
And so, the regular or the pedestrian seller might say, "Oh, well, that's not a sale."
Right.
But yeah, it might actually be, because we can look and we can see that, okay, well, that BSR stayed flat and there was a stair step down in the number of sellers.
Yep.
So maybe that did actually sell through.
Okay.
And so it really can be difficult on charts like this to make a really educated guess, which is essentially what we're doing. We're making really educated guesses based on the
Right.
data,
Yep.
because the data is not quite as clear as we'd like it to be.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're telling me that Keepa is probably going to be much more accurate on an item that, or even Amazon itself, Amazon or Keepa will be much more accurate on a product that is actually much more popular.
Yeah, and for a couple of reasons. And now, Amazon most likely updated the sales rank, and maybe it didn't change, maybe it did change, and
Uh-huh.
maybe Keepa didn't grab this. So,
Okay.
do me see here. All right, so this was last updated 2 minutes ago because you're on it. All right, so
Okay.
Keepa gathers data a couple of ways.
Okay.
Keepa does have resources that goes out and it scrapes Amazon.
Okay.
That I don't know whether or not that's not something that they say publicly, but
Okay.
it obviously happened. The
Okay.
other way that Keepa gathers data is all of us as Keepa users. If you've
Mhm.
got that Keepa extension installed, it's scraping data from your computer to be able to
Okay.
feed the Keepa information. All right.
Okay. Interesting.
And so there's a lot of ways Keepa's gathering this, but there's a couple of things. One, Keepa is going to offer more resources to the more popular items because
Okay.
that's what buyers are looking
Mhm.
for. The buyers who use Keepa,
Right.
that's what sellers are looking for. You're a bit of an anomaly. There's probably not a lot of sellers who are looking for these kinds of Keepa grabs.
Right.
And so it doesn't make sense for Keepa to spend all the server money and things like that to track these as closely as they would track more popular products.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. And actually, one thing that's interesting, if we do zoom in here, there actually is like a little. Oh, let me go back here. There's actually like a little bit of a tiny drop in the sales rank, like right up here as well, where it
Yep.
goes like 1.46 down to 1.48.
Yep.
So definitely not the stereotypical drop. A lot of the advice given to people as well is that, hey, the drop has to be like a sharp drop off a cliff. So could you give us a little bit of, what are your thoughts about that? Looking at maybe just a small little dip in the Keepa graph, or like a monumental like drop off a cliff.
Yeah, so these monumental drops off a cliff, they're obviously sales. Those
Right.
are very obvious. Now,
Okay.
the thing that we don't know is, was that 1 unit? Was
Mhm.
that 3 units? Was it 25 units? We
Right.
can't know for sure.
Right.
Now, I have some books that I've me and a few other people have put together and are on KDP that are tracked via Keepa and things like that. And I've ordered 25 units, and
Okay.
I don't see much of a move in the sales rank.
Interesting.
Uh, you
Very
know,
cool.
so yeah, it's very, very difficult. Now, when there's just a little teeny tiny drop, that
Yep.
can mean a couple of things.
Okay.
So it could mean a sale.
Okay.
It could mean that the number of items in the catalog in this particular
Interesting.
category has
Yep.
changed.
Mhm.
It could be that other items in the category are moving much slower than this one, and so
Interesting.
they've all gone up in rank, and so this one was pushed down a little bit.
Right.
So a drop in sales rank does not always equal a sale.
Mhm.
Just like an increase in sales rank does not always mean that it's not selling any
Right.
longer.
So
Uh,
nuanced, right?
it is
It
very
is so
nuanced.
complex, and that's why I love to geek out about this because, I mean, think about it from my perspective here, Chris. It's like I'm looking at books that inherently, according to Keepa, don't sell very often. So you can imagine that when I come across books and I'm trying to find books that don't sell very often, I really do need to know, is this thing going to sell or not, right? So
Hmm.
it's really interesting thing. So here's another book for you as well. So again, here's another book that I've flipped before. So this was live on, or I bought this on December 25th. And if we come down here, notice that December 25th when I bought this book, offer count actually went from 14 to 13 to 11 to 9. And obviously, I have factual evidence that I bought it, but you actually don't see anything in the sales rank drop there either. So same sort of thing here.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Mhm.
This one's really interesting. And you can
Mhm.
see that sales rank is not always
Right.
Sales rank is not always affected immediately.
Right.
Okay, so
Mhm.
one, Amazon only updates sales rank every hour.
Okay,
Uh,
interesting. I did not know that.
Now,
Okay.
I don't know whether or not I don't know if there's a lag. Like,
Mhm.
are they updating the sales rank based on the item uh, being purchased right now, or are
Okay.
they updating the sales rank based on the item being shipped out?
Interesting.
From the warehouse. That they don't tell us. All right,
Right.
we just know that they update the sales rank every hour.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, here's my theory on what happened here.
Okay.
My theory is you can see where it's just stair stepping up nicely.
Yep. Mhm.
And then you can see that price shot way down, it stair
Yep.
stepped right, way down. Then you see the sales rank start to dip just a little bit.
Right.
There are some obvious sales right before that happened. Okay,
Mhm.
it went from 14 step down to what was that, 12,
To
9 sellers.
12 to 9, yep.
Yeah, so there's obvious sales happening, and then you see the sales rank starting to go down a little bit.
Right.
Now, the reason that there may not been a sharp drop is because if we further look into sales rank and how it's calculated,
Uh-huh.
it's not just the sales that are happening right this moment that
Okay.
affect the sales rank. Uh,
Interesting.
Amazon also takes into account the historical sales
Interesting.
and kind of the overall velocity. All right.
Okay.
So let's use some smaller numbers just to make things easier.
Okay, cool.
Let's say you have a toy
Mhm.
ranked 100 on Amazon.
Okay.
It's moving pretty fast. And let's say that's been on Amazon for 10 years and it's always been right around that 100 sales rank.
Okay.
Well, if a product that's been on Amazon for a year is selling the exact same amount as the item that's currently ranked 100,
Uh-huh.
and they're dead even. Let's say they're both selling 100 a day for the past year. All right. Well, that one that's newer might have a rank of 101
Okay.
because it does not have as much of a history in
Interesting.
selling than the item that's ranked 100.
Okay.
And so that also needs to be taken into account. But the problem is that we can't remember all these things as we're sourcing.
Right. It's a
And
lot.
so, yeah, it is a ton and it's very nuanced. And so we just have to be like, okay, well, I get the big picture and I can make some pretty good decisions based on this big picture data.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. One question I have for you is, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question, but Amazon, I don't think at least publishes the exact algorithm for how bestseller rank is determined, right? And now, obviously, what we talked about so far is it's generally how popular that item is in that category, right? In
Hmm.
comparison to the other items in that category. But like you mentioned, it looks like there's also some sort of metric like how long has this thing been selling on Amazon and doing so successfully? Like that is a metric. So I'm curious if you had to give your best shot right now, what would be your best guess as to what the algorithm is for how Amazon determines bestsellers rank? Because there's like so many things I could think of. Is it like how many daily visitors that there are that day? Is it factually that, hey, this thing sold 37 times, that one sold 38 times, so the sales rank's different? Is it that, is it that this thing is actually a little bit cheaper in comparison to this other item? So we're just going to say that this is a little bit more popular. So what would you say is like your best guess of what the algorithm is, the magic key is to what sales rank is, like how
Yeah.
it's
So Amazon gives us a portion of it.
okay.
And it is how popular an item is currently in
Okay.
on Amazon in its category compared to other items in that category.
Okay.
Right. So
Yep.
we never have to worry about the sales rank, of a book being compared to the sales rank of a piece of clothing. They're all
Right.
separate. They're all broken
Right.
up. So recency and frequency of sales are a factor.
Okay.
The long term history of how quickly something sells is another factor, but it's
Okay.
not weighted like the
Okay.
recent frequent sale.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
it's weighted less, but it's still a weight.
Okay.
And then there are a few other items. Amazon gives us a little bit of it, but not all of it.
Okay.
And that's really about it. It's how often something sells. It
Right.
gets you better sales rank.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you think that
and
there could be other metrics involved in it, such as like how many people actually visit that web page on a
oh,
single day?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot you brought
Yeah.
that up. I do believe that the what do they call that? The conversion rate does hold a little bit of a factor based on the
Okay.
things that I've read from Amazon.
Okay.
And you also have to read between the lines a lot when Amazon publishes something.
Hmm.
But it does seem like conversion rate is a factor. The thing that I don't, my opinion is that if you were gonna give all of these different weights, like a 10 would
Right.
be the recency and frequency of sales.
Okay. Gotcha.
And maybe a 1 would be the conversion rate of an item.
Gotcha. That's super awesome. And just to illustrate that point even more, so here's this book. This is called The Preacher's Kid. And let me go ahead and find it here on this sheet that I have for you. Let me see. Okay, so this book, The Preacher's Kid, this is something that I actually sold not 7 days ago, but I sold it on 4/3, so April 3rd. So what I want to do is let's go ahead and look at the Keepa chart here. So again, same sort of thing. You can see that on April 3rd, sales rank actually did drop, which
Mm-hmm.
would make sense. Hey, I sold the book, sales rank drop. But what's really interesting is that not only did I sell the book, actually the next day I decided, hey, let me actually buy a few copies of this and just see what happens. Because I think at the current price of the market, I could actually still make money buying at that price. So the next day, right? So I sold it 4/3, and the next day I purchased 2 more copies on April 4th. And if you look at the Keepa graph, again, you notice that, sales rank from there only continues to go up. So it's just that stereotypical staircase up. So what's fascinating is that in this period of time where there's only one sales rank drop, the just normal Amazon sellers are going to come along and say this thing just sold once. But factually, just from me, I know that I sold the copy here, and then I bought these 2 copies where the offer count went from 8 to 6. So I guess that just further illustrates the point. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on just that little experiment.
Yeah, I would say that you're spot on there.
Mhm.
I see a little bit where the sales rank seems to flatten out just a
Right here,
touch.
right? If I,
Yeah,
yeah, right here.
yep.
Okay,
And so
wow,
I would say, okay, well, that sales rank flattened out there just a little bit.
right,
It's not stair stepping up every couple of hours. It actually stayed flat for what, maybe 6 hours, 4 or 5 hours, maybe.
right.
And so I'd say, okay, well, that's a sale. Now, had you, and see, that's the other thing we don't know is, does the number of units that are
Mhm,
purchased, does
mhm,
it count as one sale, or does it count as, each one of those is a sale to further drop that down? That's
right,
something I have no idea,
right.
and I've never found anywhere that Amazon has said what it will do.
Yeah. I'm
So yeah.
I'm curious about this as well. As I've kind of noticed that at least on some of these books that I've showed you recently, the books that I purchased, right, where there actually is no sales rank drop. Part of it could be because of those keep it. I mean, I don't even know if you'd call it a keep it error or keep it inaccuracy. It just is what it is. But one sort of maybe conspiracy theory here is what if, or I guess my thought is, my question to you is, do you think Amazon's algorithm knows the customer buying that item and therefore would include that in the popularity of the item? Because, for example, if Amazon knows that my Amazon account is always buying books to flip on Amazon, I'm not really a true customer of this product. I'm just buying it to flip it. So, do you think it's possible that Amazon algorithm knows that this shouldn't become more popular because I'm not a customer actually buying it?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say probably not.
Okay.
But I like the conspiracy theory there.
Yeah.
Because so here's the thing: Amazon knows
Hmm.
way more than we as sellers
Right.
might think that they know.
Right. Exactly.
But for example, my Amazon seller account was suspended because I shipped a product from Amazon as a buyer
Uh,
to a friend of mine who also was a seller at one time and has a suspended account.
okay.
They then attached their address to my seller account and I got suspended, even
That's
though
crazy.
that person was never in my seller account, never near my seller account. It was something I bought. It was a gift for their kid.
Hmm.
Okay. And that created a suspension for me. It cost me several thousand
Crazy.
dollars.
That's crazy.
So Amazon knows, and they know we're doing flips, and they know that we're flipping
Right.
books back on Amazon. But I doubt that they've got their AI or their algorithm fine tuned quite that much.
Yeah, that would be quite interesting for sure. So another question I have for you is: it is clear to me from our conversation so far that it would seem like Amazon does a much better job of tracking, Amazon and Keepa tracking books that are more popular. There's
Mhm.
more eyes on it. Keepa is right. There's more people looking at it. Keepa obviously has an incentive to track that product more often. My question for you is: could you break it down for us? How often does Keepa actually track an item, and does it differ depending on the perceived popularity of that item?
So Keepa doesn't tell us how often that they go
Okay.
in and actually track.
Okay.
Not like from a process standpoint.
Okay.
But right on the right in the Keepa graph, it tells us the last time it was updated. So
Right.
you can see on this
Right here.
Keepa graph, this one was last updated 34 minutes ago.
Okay.
And then we can further see how often it's been checked. So if you would zoom in a little bit on this
Yep.
graph for me,
Yep. Zoom in
let's do a day.
to a day. Okay. Let's go to a day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So if you go through here, you're going to notice right there. Okay. Right here.
Yep.
This was checked at let's see, 2023, 2026. It's got all these times in there.
Gotcha.
Each one of those are supposed to be a time that this particular item was checked.
Gotcha. So every time the sales rank changes, is that what you mean? Like that would be a time?
Actually, if you look down at the actual timestamp
Oh, the
down at the
timestamp.
bottom,
Oh, I see. Okay. So like
you'll
every few
notice that
minutes.
it's supposed to every few minutes.
Oh, wow.
To try to
Okay.
keep their information correct. Now, are they being completely forthright with us? I don't know. I can't say for sure.
Right.
But they do try every few. And I sort of think that it's probably not every few minutes like they show,
Right.
because this one says last updated 34 minutes ago.
Right. Okay.
So I'm not sure how often they actually check. I just know that on
Okay.
things like, on more popular items,
Mhm.
they do check it more often.
Okay, I see. So would you say then, so would there maybe not be like a ranking system for then how likely, so like maybe something sub 200K rank is checked every week versus something 2 million is checked every, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the internals of Keepa enough to be able to even speculate on that.
Okay.
One other thing we could maybe surmise is you're going to notice that you've got the little pink triangle for the used buy box there showing up. Every time one of those shows up, you go ahead and turn that back on for us.
Okay.
Every time one of those shows up, that should be Keepa checking and telling us who the
Interesting.
buy box user is.
That's interesting. So that could be an indicator also how often Keepa checks. Fascinating because obviously that metric is from Keepa, right? Keepa is the one who's showing you what the buy box price is. That's fascinating. Very interesting. So I'm gonna hit you with a hot take here then. Is changing used offer count for books specifically, is changing used offer count and then maybe an extension new offer count a better indicator of how often and how many of something that is selling than sales rank is?
I don't know if it's a better indicator, but
Okay.
it's definitely an indicator that we should look at. And now here's why I say this. Okay. So one, and let's talk about used books specifically.
Okay, cool.
If some of these sellers who are on Amazon are also selling on Libris and Barnes and Noble third-party marketplace and eBay, maybe they make a sale on another marketplace and they remove that from their Amazon inventory.
Very good point.
And that would count as a drop in the number of offers.
Right.
But it would not count as a sale because, well, it was a sale on another platform.
Right.
Maybe people are drop shipping and, they're selling it used from Barnes and Noble and selling it used on Amazon. And then maybe their software sees that it went out of stock on Barnes and Noble or eBay, and so their software pulls it out, and that would count.
Interesting.
And let's go one step further. Let's say that they're a used seller using FBA, and let's say that the item goes live. It gets received by Amazon, but then a day later, it gets put into FC transfer.
Okay.
Well, you might see that show up as an offer, and then you'll see it disappear because it's no longer an offer, and then it shows back up again.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of thing can happen. And that's one of the reasons why lately I've been telling people, if you go to the data section and look at how many have been sold, people be like, oh, well, I use this and it tells me how many have been sold in the last month. Well, you can't trust that number because there are too many variables. It's an okay as an indicator, but it's not the actual number that have been sold.
Yeah, very fascinating. So clearly you said that this total number down here on the data tab, right, might not be super accurate. I'm curious, how much weight then, considering the fact that you just said, hey, that these could maybe like that someone could go out of stock for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of other reasons I can think of why people go out of stock. They stranded inventory, they got restricted, maybe got an IP complaint, maybe they just pulled the listing because they wanted to pull the listing. Like there's so many reasons why offer count could change. So I'm curious, how much weight do you apply to people like this who are in stock and go out of stock as that being a sale or not being a sale?
I put zero stock into their stock level.
Okay.
And the only reason is because so many things can happen.
Right.
Like
Interesting.
you said, they could get restricted. It could go to
Mhm.
FC transfer. It could get lost in a warehouse. They could
Right.
sell it on another platform. So I don't put
Gotcha.
any weight on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. All right. I'd like to move on to just a few more books here because going along with that line of, me saying this crazy statement that maybe changing offer count is a better indicator of how often something's selling and how many times it is sold, maybe specifically for books or products that are ranked higher. I mean, here's another book that I just bought recently. So this was bought yesterday and this would be April 16th. And so this is a stock market timing book. So it's like, thinking about this I could totally see this having value potentially. So notice that when I end up buying this, the price of this went from 298 all the way down to about $15, and that's when I end up purchasing it. And obviously, most people look at this graph and say, "Yeah, dude, this thing is sold twice, right?" And I guess what I'm looking at here is like, how much weight do you give to something like this, where it's like collectible offer price is $87.99, and then you see the collectible offer counts one, and then it goes to zero, and then you see the sales rank drop. Would you feel comfortable saying that probably was a sale?
Yeah, most likely.
Okay.
It is most likely a sale.
Okay.
We work in this very gray area, and I know that a lot of people who come to Amazon, especially as newer sellers, they really want they want concrete. They want to
Right.
know for sure, like, does this mean it's a sale?
Right.
And as much as I want to be able to tell them that, I'd be doing them a disservice. So the thing is if it seems like a sale, it probably
Probably is.
was.
Okay.
We just have to realize that there are other things that can happen. And
Right.
so, if it's a bad buy because, we were just a little off, you need to be okay and not have gone, like buying 500 of these would have been a really bad idea,
Right, right, exactly. And going back a little bit further into time, like something that you see is like, okay, you could count the sales rank drops. It's like one, two, three. It looks like four sales rank drops. So again, sort of beginner advice is all right. This thing sold four times, but also you see in this period of time, like the offer count changes drastically. It changes wildly. Like it starts at 11, then it goes it's all the way down to like 5, and then it goes back up to 10, which maybe that's like an FCE transfer. I don't know, like you're saying, and then it goes back down. So you see so much volatility in the offer count. So is there a point at which you see so much volatility in the offer count that it's like this has got to mean that this thing is probably selling more than four times? Or it's like, again, same sort of principle, you can't really assign that weight to doing that?
I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
What I'm guessing here is,
Mhm.
in that particular area you were showing, it went
Yep.
from 10 or 12 sellers down to
Yep.
5 really quickly.
Right.
I almost wouldn't be surprised if, and then we see a sharp sales rank drop.
Yeah.
Is that someone who for some reason needed, 5 or 10 copies of this?
Right.
That certainly could be.
Right.
Maybe they're giving it to their friends. I am someone who buys books in multiple. I just
Okay.
bought a book. I bought a book last week, and I didn't
Uh-huh.
just buy one copy. I bought like 10.
Mhm.
Because I've got certain people I want to give this particular book to.
Yeah.
And so there are other people like me who do that as well.
Yep. Okay. And going back to November, obviously sales rank doesn't drop, but going back to sales rank looks kind of flat here. But again, look at offer count. It goes like 10-9, then it goes back 10-9-8, goes back up to 9, and then it just kind of steadily goes down. So again, you would think logically that if the number of sellers got cut, basically went from like 10 to like 3 or 4 over a 1 month period of time, like that's got to be sales, even though we don't necessarily see the sales rank drop, I guess, until later. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's like you see two sales rank drops, but you see all of this velocity or all this volatility of the offer count. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm like, man, I'm wondering if a lot of these items are actually selling more frequently than I think that they would be selling. But
Yeah, and they certainly could be. And unfortunately, the only way we can even test that is to send an inventory.
right.
Now, the other thing I like to use here, which I don't think that this one has it available, is I
Okay.
do like to look at reviews as well.
Right. Yeah, this one doesn't have it
Because
available.
yeah,
Right.
the recency and frequency of reviews can give us another understanding as to whether or not it's selling.
Right. So I'm curious, going back to the review count, like this is another book. This is a pure vegetarian book again.
Hmm.
This is a book that I'd purchased actually on eBay I think it was on Amazon. It was cross-listed, so I actually bought it on eBay. That kind of comes back to your point of like, hey, these people can be cross-listing and their offer count can actually drop because it was sold on another platform and they took it off the listing. But I guess the thing that shows up here is actually the review counts. So like notice from basically May to October of 2022, right? Sales rank is basically just going up, but you do actually see, the review count, like you mentioned, go from 31 to 32 to 33 to 34, and you do see offer count changing. So what's your thought on a book like this?
My opinion here is that this one is definitely it's moving. Now, we do need to look a little bit deeper at the reviews.
Okay.
Are they coming from the US marketplace?
Ooh, how would we
Are
even do that? I don't even know how to.
you have to go and manually look at the reviews.
Okay, you'd have to go. So I would just go here
Yeah.
to 46 ratings.
Yep.
Okay. Top reviews from the
Uh,
United States. Okay.
so now change that from top reviews to most recent.
Okay.
Okay. So now we can see that the most recent actual written review
Right.
was December 24th, 2019.
Right.
So what we're seeing is ratings on this
Right.
particular book. We're
Okay.
not actually seeing reviews.
Okay.
Now chances are those ratings are coming from buyers in the US. That's where the biggest marketplace is, although
Right.
they could come from other places. So you
Okay.
have to,
Gotcha.
there we go. All right. So
Okay.
you see some other reviews from other countries. That one's back April 24 of 2019. So it's older than
Okay.
the most recent review from the US.
Right.
So chances are the ratings that are happening to cause that little ratings and review button to go or line to go up, it's
Uh-huh.
most likely from the US market.
So what exactly is the difference between a review and a rating? Is a rating just someone giving a 5 star without actually leaving any comment?
Yes, and that's
Okay.
that's something that's like newish in the past 2 years.
Okay.
It used to be that if you wanted to leave a rating on a product, you had to write a review.
Okay.
And then Amazon changed it and said, "Hey, if you just want to leave a number of stars, you can do that as well, and it counts
Gotcha.
into the ratings and reviews here."
Okay. Cool.
Now,
So yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, now we can take this one step further, and
Uh-huh.
if there's a listing with variations, we're
Gotcha.
going to have a little variation button that we can take a look at inside of Keepa, and then we'll be able to break it down.
Right.
How many ratings are there? How many reviews are there by each
Right.
ASIN? I'm sure there's something that might do that for a little bit better than Keepa does without this
Okay.
variation. But if
Okay.
you scroll over to the right in this set of information here,
Yep.
you're going to see ratings history. So that
Okay.
top one that's moving very fast, those are people actually just leaving a number of stars,
Okay.
and it's going up and to the right.
Right.
And then you see the reviews history,
Yep.
and it's also going up and to the right, but at a much slower pace. And
Right.
those are people actually leaving written reviews.
Written reviews. Gotcha. Okay. Very fascinating. Let's go back to that book that we were just looking at. Now, what are your thoughts on something like this then, where review count all of a sudden goes from 35 up to 44?
It's either some sort of glitch, which happens on occasion,
Okay.
or it's because, a number of people bought the book and left ratings on it for one reason or another. Maybe this particular book caught some sort of wave, and a bunch of people bought it. And then, honestly, some people will come to Amazon and leave a rating when they bought a book at or anything at another store. It's
Really?
weird.
Okay.
It's something I would never do. Okay.
Interesting.
But there are people out there who are like, oh, you know what? I really like this product, and look it up on Amazon, and they'll leave a rating or a review.
Okay, so this number doesn't have anything to do with like verified purchase or anything like that. It's just anyone can
Nope.
leave a review. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So you can only leave an actual written review if you've purchased the item, I believe.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But you can leave a rating on anything. So if there's a particular brand that I don't like, I could
Mhm.
just go spam them with a bunch of 1-star ratings on all their products.
Right. Okay. So I'm curious your thoughts on a book like this. So basically the price list dropped down to $5.99. We
hmm
do see two historical drops. I mean, I would say this drop probably was here at 75. Not sure if you agree with that. And then this drop looks like maybe at 53, where the offer count went from 1 to 0. So
hmm
obviously doesn't sell a lot, but notice here that the offer count definitely is changing. And we do see the price also adjusting with the offer count changing. And if we go back a little bit further back into time, you can see it looks like this has definitely held, significantly more value than what it was priced at when I bought it. So I'm curious, just, I mean, obviously you're not buying more than one copy of this. I'm just curious, do you think this is a bad buy? Do you think this is a decent buy? What are your thoughts on it?
I don't think this is a bad buy,
Mhm.
especially when you got it for $5. That cost of goods sold is crazy.
Yeah.
And it looks like historically
Yeah.
that the market has bared a $30 to $40 price on this particular item.
Right.
So that's probably where I would price it. I see some $300 prices. Those are those people are cuckoo.
Yeah.
But could you get 30, $40 for this? Yeah, that's probably
Right.
where I would end up pricing it.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm thinking about this book. All right. Very cool.
Now, the other thing on
Yeah.
that last book, just
Mhm.
something that I find interesting and kind of funny, is they show the publishing date as 1709.
Yeah, they show that a lot actually. You'd be surprised how many books have like 1709 or like something like that. It's pretty
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah. But everyone, like, so there's Chris Grant telling me that this book was not a bad buy. He's not saying that I'm not, getting rich off this book, but it's a 5.5 million ranked book. Most people would scan this book and just automatically, based upon trigger, just ignore it, right? But it just shows you how
Yeah.
maybe some Keepa analysis. Like, imagine if you scan this at a library scale yesterday for 5.99 with a 5 million rank, the average thrifter would just say that book's never going to sell ever. It's worthless, right? So
Hmm.
it's interesting. Okay. So here's another book. This is called Solomon's Temple Model. So, I bought this actually earlier this morning, and you can actually see that, you look at this and this book looks super underwhelming, right? Obviously, I purchased this book when it was at $29, which is at least significantly under the lowest used merchant price. Now, again, whether or not this is selling is another thing. Now, one thing that's interesting is review count does go from 34 to 37, which seems a bit odd considering that, there wasn't really any used offers available according to Keepa there. And also it seems like a jump of 3 in ratings would be weird. But again, going back into time and looking at this, when I look at the book like this, where it's like, again, offer count goes from 10 to 9 to 8 to 9 to 6 to 4 to 2 to 1, and I do see a sales rank drop, I'm thinking those are probably sales. Now, I'm curious, how likely do you think this here is actually sales? I know we're kind of beating a dead horse, but
Yeah.
this is really interesting because its implications are, if people don't understand that books can actually be selling when Keepa says that otherwise not, that could be really a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge competitive advantage, and it's actually one of the reasons why I typically don't stay where a lot of other sellers like to play.
Right.
Yeah, it's very popular for newer sellers to hear the advice, stay under 50,000 in sales rank on
Right.
whatever you're buying.
Right.
And I appreciate where that advice is coming from.
Right.
I think that it's a disservice to tell people that.
Okay.
I will play in the 75 to 250,000 BSR range
Right.
all day, and I'll do it with less competition and
Yeah.
typically more margin.
Right.
So I would agree. Now back to this, I would agree with you here.
Okay.
This is very likely selling. I mean,
Okay.
all the signs are pointing to it's selling. Now could it be that they sold on other channels? Could it be that
Right.
it was another quarter was ending here, April into May,
Yeah.
and they were trying to get out of long-term storage fees. It
I didn't
could
even
be
think about
that.
that.
There's all kinds of things that could happen.
Right.
But chances are these are probably selling a little bit.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, and even though it's like, here's another example where it's like, Chris, tell me, how could these not be sales? Like, I know that they couldn't be, but look at like how volatile the price is going down. Like, generally, like this is kind of like, it looks like this is a textbook season, just not without the sales rank drops. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we've got to apply Occam's razor here a little bit. Okay. And Occam's razor states that the simplest explanation is probably the one that's most right.
Okay.
Well, the simplest explanation is that this product is selling through.
Right.
Because the number of sellers is going down.
Right.
Now, could we try to figure out, well, is inventory going stranded? Are they selling on other platforms?
Right.
Too many assumptions to be made there. So I would say that, yeah, in that time period, there were people buying the heck out of it. And for
Right.
some reason, the sales rank was not responding.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's see. So here's an interesting one. This is actually going to do with those little purple diamond buns, which is the used buy box price. So this is the Fractures of the Pelvis book. So I didn't actually buy this today. Someone else bought this today, but price of this dropped from $275 down to about $19.99. And you can see that there was one sales rank drop just recently on April 12th, but price was $145. Offer count from 2 to 1. Okay, so
Mhm.
we would think historically that it probably did sell, right? Sales rank drops, offer count drops. But what I'm curious about here is notice again that when the sales rank is not dropping during this period of time, but the offer count is dropping, we do see these little purple buttons, which are the buy box price. And if you click on these buttons, like obviously it shows you the name of the seller, it shows
Mhm.
you what price they've had over time, and it shows you when they came in stock and also when they went out of stock, which could be for a variety of reasons. So I think maybe you've already answered this, but this seller here obviously went out of stock. That's obviously going to be reflected here. And then there's another seller on this listing as well that also went out of stock with offer count. So how much weight are we going to be giving to that metric there of their offer count going from 1 to 0?
I think it's fair to say that that was most likely a sale. Again,
Okay.
we've got to apply Occam's razor.
Okay.
That's the simplest explanation, and
Right.
so it's the one that's most likely to be correct.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Very good. All right. So, interesting thing that I saw in this Keepa graph. Wondering if you could explain this. So here's a diagnostic pathology book. So if we look here at the used and new offer count, it's kind of, I don't know really how to explain it, Chris, but it kind of just goes like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it does that at least in the last year, pretty much throughout this whole year, even despite the fact that in the first 6 months, we do see some sales rank drops. And then we actually don't see sales rank drops in the later 6 months, but we do see an increase in review count. So have you ever come across something that looks like that? What are your thoughts on offer count changing like that?
Yeah, so these kind of offer counts are really really weird.
Okay.
And so when I see something like this, where it's got these quick little ups and downs,
Yep.
I figure that either there's some glitch in either how Amazon's reporting,
Okay.
or maybe in how Keepa is seeing things, and I don't equate these ones to sales.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Now, could they be? Absolutely. They absolutely could be sales. I could be way off base. But you would, if this many sales was happening, you would
Yeah.
see a better sales rank on this particular item,
Right.
and that's why I don't necessarily equate these to sales.
Cool. So I'm curious with you, Chris. Obviously, you're not in books, but I'm just curious: is this something that you would consider picking up? I mean, look at that used price over time. Last 6 months out of the year, like up to 180 used price, and then today this just dropped from 113 down to 35. If we could look back at past historical data, looks pretty crazy, pretty insane. I mean, there is a newer edition of this book out, so if I hover that book, you can see it down at the bottom right, but if we look at the offers here, you can see that right now it looks like we got one seller renting you. Actually, looks like we have three. We have renting you who's selling one in good and like new. They have 4 copies total, and then we have 7 copies over here from the Wisdom Shop. So I'm just curious.
Mhm.
Obviously, you don't sell books, but what do you think about that?
So this one's interesting. It looks like someone's repricer is forcing the price of a few sellers down.
Right.
Which we've seen over a couple of weeks there. And then someone took a big drop today.
Yep.
Now, I can see over time that it seems like the market does respond to a higher price,
Yep.
and will buy it.
Hmm.
But there being a new version of it, I have to see when the new version was released
Yeah,
in
let's go ahead and take a
comparison to
look at
this
that.
one.
Yep. So let's see. This older version was released down here. This would be May 9th, 2016.
Okay.
And this newer edition was released on 2022. So last year,
Okay.
mid last year.
So I would probably end up passing, because if you go and look at the other chart,
Uh-huh.
all right, it wasn't until 20 at the very end of 2022 when
Uh-huh.
it looks like it really kind of stopped selling.
Right.
And you can see that some of the more tenured booksellers are obviously dropping their prices.
Right. That's
And
good.
as
Yep.
tenured booksellers, I'd pretty much follow their lead and say, okay, they're trying to liquidate to get out of this book. Maybe it's not something that I want to try to sell at a price that the market no longer bears.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because a lot of times it is dreadful when you have big sellers like Apex Media Rent You come on the listing because they can liquidate tons and tons of stock and they could definitely ruin a listing. So I think that, yeah, really cool insight. I appreciate that. We are getting closer to the end of this, and for me, this has been super valuable, Chris. Now I'm someone who's actually interested in possibly starting to transition a little bit into just traditional online arbitrage, which means
Hmm.
not buying books specifically. And, I actually have bought a few things and those things have sold just from my Keepa knowledge of books. But I'm curious, I have a couple of products pulled up here. So I have some Adidas shoes and I also have, which looks like this lipstick here. And I kind of just want your your advice on things like this again, because I know you talked about being outside of that normal niche of really, really high sell-through rate and going to things that sell a little bit less frequently. So here's a product that I came across, and let's see if we can go ahead and let's get Celoramp back here, because this is a product that right now, if we go over to Google and we just click the Google button on Celoramp, it looks like we can basically buy this for $18.75 on this other website. And I think they're offering like a 15% off your first purchase or something like that. So $18.75 plus, 15% off. And if we go back over to the Keepa chart here, I matched up. This is the right flavor, the right color, whatever. But this is this Keepa chart. So obviously, it looks to me like these sales are probably right around $40, and you can see a sales rank just dropped here recently. Is this something that you'd be interested in? It's 186 days old.
Well, there are some reasons outside of the Keepa graph that would keep me from selling this particular product.
Okay.
And the number one reason is that this is misbranded. You'll notice that the brand on this is generic.
Okay.
And so if you buy this and try to list it, you may actually come up with, I believe it's a 5665 or a 5666 error or something.
Okay.
I can't remember what it's called, but because it's misbranded, that could be a problem. It could also
so let's because it says brand generic. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
the brand on this is Huda or Huda. I don't know how to pronounce it, but
Okay.
this blush is a popular brand. I'm very familiar with this brand.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's generic, I would pass on it, because
Okay.
two things can happen. One, you might not be able to list it at all.
Okay.
Two, you might get an IP complaint if someone wanted to, because this item's been misbranded.
Okay. Interesting.
Let's say that those things are taken off the table.
Okay.
And those are fine. Would I sell this particular item? This one sells a little bit slower than I would care for.
Okay.
But if I knew that, okay, well, there's two other competitors typically on this particular item.
Right.
And let's say that I could make like a 300% ROI and it wasn't going to cost me a ton of money. I might buy 1 or 2 units max.
Okay.
And let them go in and be sold. But this would be something that I probably would end up saying I could spend my money better on other products.
Very cool. Very good. All right. So the next one that I have here is actually an Adidas shoe. So again, let's get Celoramp here. Okay. So basically, if we take a look at Google as well for this shoe here, it looks like at this website called showshoemega.com, we can pick up some of, obviously this is a variation listing, but this variation in particular, the black white, you can pick up for like 19. And there's a couple of different sizes here, 6.5, 9.5, and 11.5. And this is also a women's shoe, by the way. So I'm curious, you come to this listing, what are sort of some of the things that you're looking at here first to figure out if this is even something you'd consider buying?
All right. So very first thing that I'm considering is that white and black, that's going to be a fairly popular color. I think black is the most popular shoe color.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So that's a good thing.
Okay.
The sizes that they have are also more. The 11 may be a little bit of an outlier.
Okay.
But the 6 and 9.5 in women's, those are fairly common. I used to have it memorized, like what percentage of women are between size like 6 and 10, and I don't have that memorized anymore.
Okay.
Now, the next thing I'm looking at is I want to go down to the variations in the Keepa graph.
Okay, so variations. Okay.
And this should automatically be sorted by the most popular variation at the top. Look at that. Black and white is one of the most popular variations.
Okay.
What size is that? That's
size
size 8.
8. Yep.
Okay. And then we've got 8.5.
Yeah.
And that one's 9.
9.
Let's keep going just a little bit.
7.
7.
And then we have 7 again.
Okay.
Interesting. Then we have 10.
10. All right.
Okay, 9.5.
9.5. There's one of the ones they had. Okay. So in the top 10, we've got the size that we're looking for. And in all of these, top 10 that we've looked at, they're all the same color. So we obviously know that color is popular.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So that doesn't need to worry me. So now it's just, let's look at the sizes that match what we can actually buy.
Okay.
Let's see if there is some velocity in the reviews and in the actual ratings to make sure that there are variations that are actually selling through, because we know that the sales rank is not going to be accurate, because the sales rank is for the parent ASIN rather than the single variant.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this sales rank means nothing for this individual this individual size and colorway.
Correct. What that
Okay.
sales rank means, okay, is every variation listing has
Uh-huh.
an ASIN that is
Right.
not attached to a particular size and color.
Okay.
And every time a what's called a child ASIN sells,
Mm-hmm.
that parent ASIN absorbs the sales rank for it. All right.
Interesting. Okay.
So I don't. How many variations were on this listing?
A lot. Let's go and take a look at it. Many, many, many. And if we go up here, it says see other 41 options up there. And it should tell you here in the variation tab, I'm assuming, right?
It should, yes.
Yeah. All
It'll
right.
tell
Let's
you
see.
how many show up there.
Is that 519?
So there's 519 variations on this listing.
Okay.
So for every sale, no matter what color and size it is, that sale is counting toward the BSR of the parent rather
Okay.
than them being different. So all the BSRs are going to be exactly the same,
Okay.
whether it's the shoe that sells the most or if
Okay.
it's the shoe that hasn't sold in a year and a half.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. And let's see. I think if we can go back here where exactly was that? I think this is the 9.5. So would you look at this image or would you look at this product in its own sort of like, would you actually click this button and pull it up so you have its own listing and you can look at the data tab? Or would you actually just from right there look at what the actual rating history and review count history is?
I typically pull it up by itself, but we can look at everything right here.
Right.
Okay. And so first thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at the historical price in pink.
Okay.
It
Right here.
does
Right.
the market pay a price on this that I'm going to be able to make a profit on. And it looks like it. Now, there's a weird drop in the price recently and then a
Okay.
recovery. All right.
Okay.
So someone was liquidating for some reason or another price wise.
Find again.
All right.
Yeah. Trying to find it. Okay. Well, here it is. So right here. This is the exact listing. Sorry about that. Okay.
Okay.
So here's
Perfect.
the exact. So this drop in price right here.
Yeah, it dropped from 55 to 37 for
Yep.
some reason, and then it does recover.
Right.
All right. Now that might be, let's say a mega seller was on this listing, like a 6 p.m. or a
Mhm.
Zappos, which are both owned by Amazon.
Oh,
It
I did
could
not
have
know that.
been,
Okay, wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it could have been them liquidating as well.
Okay.
Okay, maybe that's why the price dropped, but it's come back. So, and I can see historically that most of the time, this shoe sells in the $45 to $50 range.
Okay.
And right now it seems to be at $50.
Okay.
Now, what I would do personally is I would say, okay, I need to make sure that I can make money at, let's say, $40 just
Right.
in case that price comes back down.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
And I can make a little bit of money there. All right.
Okay.
So now what I'm doing here is I'm protecting my downside by
Okay.
knowing that, yes, I could make up to $20 on this shoe, but
Mhm.
worst case scenario, I'm at least going to be, or $15, I
Yeah.
guess. But
Somewhere
worst
on there,
case
yeah.
scenario, I'm going to be able to make $4,
Right.
right? And now, of course, I'm not taking into account any returns or things like that. All right.
Right. Okay.
Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the number of rating.
Okay,
We
so
can
let's
see
go
that
over here.
on this particular variation, that little kind of seafoam color,
Uh-huh.
it's going up and to the right.
Right.
That works for me. I'm happy with that. The reviews has sort of fallen off.
Right.
But we can see that it did go up and then it kind of got flat. But here's the thing. The consumer is lazy. So that doesn't worry me if the ratings are continuing to go up and to the right.
Right.
So
Right. Interesting.
yeah, I'd be okay with selling this shoe
Okay.
without an issue.
Cool. And let me go ahead and I'm curious to dive into a little bit more data here. So I know that you said you don't really give much weight to the data tab and looking at the offers, but I'm curious here, just like, because we mentioned that price dropped off a cliff. I'm pretty sure that was Amazon. I think it was actually Amazon that did that.
Yeah, it looks
So,
like it.
so if we go new and we go historical offers, like I think this is what you mean about this is probably like an FC transfer, right? Stock goes to 1 to 6 to 1. Is that what you think that would be?
It most certainly could be. Yeah.
Okay. And then see, this is something from my perspective. I think this is probably more realistic where it's like stock goes 19, then goes 18 and 17, because that seems more realistic in terms of what like them selling individual quantities. But I'm not sure. What do you
Yeah.
I mean, you're not looking at this at all, really?
I don't use it as a metric personally.
Okay.
I use the data tab for something else, which unfortunately we don't have time to get into here. But
no worries.
but yeah, you'll notice that the one that looked really good and always had data, that was Zappos.
Right.
Okay, that's an Amazon company.
Right.
And so I would say, yeah, that one is accurate.
Okay.
All the other ones, they're too many variables.
Right. Okay.
Now, again, applying Occam's razor, the most likely situation is that, yeah, when they have one in stock and then it goes away, it's most likely a sale.
Right. Gotcha.
However, I've seen it happen too many times where I sell something and I don't show up here at all, even
Right.
though I've
Yeah.
sold 10 or 20 units.
That makes a lot of
Uh,
sense.
I have seen it happen where my stock is in stock, it goes to FC transfer, and so it shows up and then it's gone.
Cool.
And I've verified that with others, which is why I'm really careful about this. Plus, you'll notice here that over the past 30 days, this said it sold 1,265 shoes.
Right.
This, if I'm not mistaken, this was ranked
Let's
under
see.
1,000.
462.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's selling 2 to 3 times that volume easily.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, Chris. I know that was a lot of Keepa analysis, a lot of Keepa deep dive. It was super valuable to me. And I think it's going to be really super valuable to all my audience members. So before we head off, I just want to give everyone the opportunity. I want to give you the opportunity to just tell people where can they find you. If you could talk a little about maybe the OA challenge and just generally where can they go find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so on social media, everywhere, Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, I'm at Clear the Shelf. And so I try to make that as easy as possible. And I would love for you to, hit the follow button wherever you might follow other folks as well. The OA Challenge. So the OA Challenge is a 2-week live course or cohort that we put together. And what we did tonight or today, whenever you're watching this, that's essentially what we do for 2 of the 14 days of the OA challenge. We dive incredibly deep on how to properly figure out and utilize Keepa, not only for figuring out whether things sell, but then also how to use it as a sourcing tool, much like Joji does for book. But we look at tons of other products and do OA.
Awesome.
And then outside of that, we talk about sourcing and how to do it properly and ways to think about it. So I don't know. I think that what we've done in the OA challenge is we've blended both the arts and the science of online arbitrage,
Right.
and then we bring that in a 14-day live course,
Awesome.
and it's 14 days live straight, no breaks, pedal to the metal, because we also want it to build in a habit for the people who come through, because consistency is what wins this game long term on Amazon. And so if you can be consistent for 2 weeks listening to me talk, you can be consistent for 2 weeks in sourcing. And so yeah,
Awesome.
it's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, Chris, I can listen to you talk all day, man. You're a Keepa wizard, and I appreciate all the gems that you drop for all of us here. So everyone, that's all we got for today. I'll see you in the next one. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next one. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
All right.